Today's story is about James and Mary, a love that endured a decade of separation, patience, and unspoken promises. This is a tale of hope, resilience, and the power of keeping your word, even when time tests it. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe to our channel and stay with us for more emotional and inspiring real-life love stories. James and Mary's story began in the quiet corridors of a small-town high school, where laughter echoed between lockers and young hearts discovered the thrill of first love. James, with his easy smile and quiet confidence, had always stood out, not for flamboyance, but for a sincerity that drew people in. Mary, thoughtful and spirited, carried a light within her that brightened even the most ordinary days. From the moment they met, their connection was undeniable, a bond stitched together by shared dreams, whispered secrets, and the unspoken understanding that life was infinitely richer when experienced together. Friends often remarked on the depth of their affection, noting that their love seemed rooted not just in attraction, but in an almost intuitive comprehension of one another's hearts. During those formative years, promises were made with a fervor reserved for youth. Among them, James made a vow that would come to define the essence of their story, a pledge to always return, to never abandon Mary no matter the distance, the time, or the circumstances life might impose. It was a promise that carried weight beyond his years, a testimony to a love that felt unshakable even in its earliest stages. Mary, trusting the truth in his words, held on to that promise with the quiet conviction of someone who had glimpsed a rare and enduring connection. After graduation, life's trajectory pulled them onto different paths. James received an opportunity to pursue higher studies abroad, a venture that promised growth and future security, but demanded separation from the life he had known. Mary, staying behind in their hometown, faced her own challenges, balancing family responsibilities and work, all while cherishing the hope that James' promise was more than mere words. In the first months of distance, their relationship survived on late-night calls, heartfelt letters, and the faint but persistent reassurance that what they shared transcended miles. Observers of long-distance relationships often note that the true test lies not in the physical absence itself, but in the emotional endurance it demands. Mary's days became exercises in patience, each one a meditation on trust, faith, and the quiet resilience of hope. She organized her life around small rituals that connected her to James, a particular cafe where they had first met, the books he had recommended, and the songs that had accompanied their early memories. In these routines, she found solace, as if weaving an invisible thread that kept their hearts aligned despite the temporal separation. James, too, wrestled with the tension between ambition and attachment. Immersed in studies and later in the challenges of establishing a career in a new country, he was confronted by the stark realities of responsibility, expectation, and the often overwhelming pressure to succeed. Yet even in the midst of these demands, Mary remained a focal point of his thoughts, a silent anchor reminding him of home, of belonging, and of the promise he had made with youthful earnestness. Those who knew him remarked on the quiet melancholy that sometimes accompanied his moments of reflection, a testament to the emotional weight he carried alongside his professional aspirations. The letters and messages exchanged over the months and years were more than mere communication. They were vessels of intimacy, capturing the nuance of emotions that time and distance threatened to dilute. Mary's handwriting, precise and deliberate, conveyed patience, longing, and unwavering belief, while James' responses, occasionally hurried, sometimes reflective, offered glimpses of a heart struggling to reconcile duty with desire. Experts on human attachment often point out that such sustained, meaningful exchanges, even amidst prolonged absence, can create an emotional continuity that sustains bonds through time, though they require extraordinary perseverance. Despite their mutual efforts, the practicalities of life introduced complications that neither could fully anticipate. Family obligations, career demands, and unforeseen crises gradually eroded the frequency of contact. Yet Mary's commitment did not waver. Her friends, aware of the persistence and discipline she maintained in waiting, often expressed admiration tinged with concern. It takes a rare kind of strength to love and wait without certainty, one friend reflected. Mary embodies the quiet courage of someone who believes in the value of a promise above all else. Through the years, Mary developed a disciplined rhythm, structuring her days with purpose and mindfulness. Work became both a necessity and a refuge, while friendships and community engagement offered layers of support and connection. Still, she carved out time for remembrance, allowing herself to relive the moments with James, not in a way that prevented her from living, but in a way that honored the depth of their shared history. In many ways, her life became a delicate balance between presence and remembrance, between hope and acceptance. Meanwhile, James navigated his own evolving understanding of commitment and consequence. Career milestones brought recognition and stability, yet personal fulfillment remained elusive. In quiet hours, he revisited memories of Mary, her laughter, her insights, the subtle warmth of her presence, and recognized the ways in which distance had magnified both longing and regret. Psychologists studying attachment note that such long-term separations, when layered with unresolved promises, can create a psychological landscape where anticipation and yearning coexist with achievement and responsibility, often intensifying emotional complexity rather than diminishing it. As the years unfolded, friends and acquaintances occasionally questioned the wisdom of Mary's unwavering patience. Social commentary often frames prolonged waiting as impractical or emotionally risky, yet Mary's approach defied conventional logic. Her resilience was rooted not in denial of reality, but in a conscious choice to uphold faith in the promise that had first bound her heart to James's. In her quiet perseverance, she modeled an often overlooked aspect of human experience: that love, when grounded in trust and intention, can maintain vitality even under extreme temporal strain. Throughout this decade of separation, subtle, almost imperceptible signals sustained Mary's sense of connection. A postcard sent from a city halfway across the world, a brief phone call amidst professional chaos, or even the echo of a memory brought to life by a song, all acted as threads weaving continuity through her life. Each gesture, however minor, reinforced the belief that the promise James had made was neither forgotten nor abandoned. Life's unpredictability, though formidable, had not severed the emotional tether she maintained with unwavering discipline. Conversations in Mary's circle often circled around questions of hope, patience, and the limits of human endurance. "I can't imagine waiting so long," one friend admitted, but Mary seems to have cultivated a strength that transcends ordinary understanding. Such reflections underscored a fundamental lesson: that the human heart is capable of sustaining commitment over vast stretches of time, and that integrity, both of one's own promises and of one's emotional investments, holds enduring significance. Meanwhile, James, despite professional success and personal growth, carried a subtle burden of absence and unfulfilled expectation. He had once imagined that life's circumstances would align seamlessly with his promise, yet he came to understand that intention alone is insufficient against the currents of reality. In many ways, the tension between what was desired and what was possible became the defining narrative of his adult life, a lesson in humility, prioritization, and the weight of promises made to others. Even as the decade progressed, the story of James and Mary resonated with those who came to learn of it. Their journey was emblematic of enduring love, the complexities of human commitment, and the intersection of choice and circumstance. Scholars and relationship experts often point to such narratives as powerful case studies in the psychology of attachment, illustrating the interplay between hope, memory, and personal growth over extended periods. Amidst the mundane routines and extraordinary perseverance, Mary's life unfolded with both quiet grace and disciplined intention. Each day, she made choices that reflected both her present reality and the enduring significance of a promise she had once received. In this way, she exemplified a principle often overlooked in contemporary society, that love, when anchored in conviction and clarity, can shape the contours of a life, even when direct fulfillment remains elusive. It was during the final months of the 10th year that the narrative began to shift subtly, as though the threads of time were guiding toward a pivotal convergence. Letters that had once arrived sporadically became imbued with new urgency. Messages carried reflections not only on past memories, but also on personal growth, acknowledgement of mistakes, and expressions of gratitude for patience and constancy. Experts suggest that such late-stage communications often serve as emotional precursors to reconciliation, closure, or transformative understanding, moments where the cumulative weight of years intersects with conscious intention. And yet, the story remained unresolved, balanced delicately between anticipation and uncertainty. Mary, in her habitual quiet reflection, recognized the convergence of hope and apprehension. Each letter from James acted as both affirmation and test of endurance, reminding her of the depth of their connection while demanding careful navigation of evolving emotional terrain. In these moments, the narrative of their lives expanded beyond mere reunion or separation. It became a meditation on the endurance of human attachment, the moral weight of promises, and the transformative potential of love sustained across time. As the days drew closer to what might be a decisive moment, Mary's anticipation was matched by careful self-awareness. She understood that the past decade had transformed both herself and James, and that whatever outcome awaited would carry profound lessons. The strength she had cultivated, the wisdom gained from patience, and the depth of her emotional resilience positioned her not merely as a waiting figure, but as an active participant in the shaping of a story that transcended ordinary romantic narratives. And so, as the 10th year approached its quiet conclusion, the stage was set for the events that would define the next chapter. It was a moment poised between expectation and reality, between the fulfillment of long-held vows and the unpredictable tides of human circumstance. The story of James and Mary, carried across a decade of distance, discipline, and devotion, had arrived at a critical juncture, one that promised profound insight into the nature of love, commitment, and the human heart's capacity for endurance. James and Mary's story, after 10 years of distance and careful endurance, reached a stage where patience alone no longer defined the emotional landscape. By now, both had changed profoundly, not just in circumstance, but in the quiet contours of their hearts. Mary, whose life had been structured around the hope of James' return, had cultivated a deep sense of self-awareness and resilience. She had learned to anchor herself not solely in the past, but in the present reality, balancing hope with the practicalities of daily life. Her career had grown steadily. She had developed friendships and connections that enriched her world. Yet she never allowed these to eclipse the central narrative of her enduring commitment to James. Friends who knew her well often marveled at her ability to live fully while carrying the weight of a promise unbroken across a decade. It's remarkable, one colleague noted, how she has maintained her integrity and strength without letting life pass her by. James, meanwhile, was no longer the young man who had made a vow without fully understanding its implications. Life abroad, professional responsibilities, and personal trials had shaped him into someone both reflective and, at times, haunted by the passage of time. He had kept Mary in his heart through it all, aware that every decision he made carried the quiet echo of that promise. Those close to him recognized the tension between success and longing. The professional accolades contrasted with the personal emptiness that even the brightest achievements could not fill. Psychologists studying long-distance attachment often note that such internal conflict is common when promises are made with deep emotional significance, yet tested by prolonged separation. In James' case, the absence of closure had created a complex emotional resonance, one that was at once painful and motivating. It was during the 11th year that communication began to take on a new dimension. Letters, once sporadic and cautious, evolved into more reflective and vulnerable expressions. James wrote not only to recall past memories, but also to articulate lessons learned, regrets acknowledged, and gratitude expressed for Mary's unwavering patience. In one particularly poignant letter, he reflected, "I have walked many roads, learned many truths, and yet the constancy of your belief has been my quiet guide. I see now how deeply your strength has shaped my understanding of love, patience, and fidelity." Such words were not merely affectionate, they were the articulation of profound introspection, a bridge built from reflection rather than impulse. Mary read these letters with a complex mixture of hope, caution, and tempered excitement. She recognized the sincerity, yet years of waiting had taught her the need to balance emotion with discernment. The lessons of the past decade had cultivated an emotional intelligence that allowed her to feel deeply without being overwhelmed. In her journal, she wrote, "Love is not merely about presence, but about understanding. Time has shown me that waiting is not passive. It is a form of living with intention." Such reflections illustrate a broader psychological insight that enduring emotional connection can exist alongside independent growth, and that patience, when consciously exercised, can be transformative rather than stagnant. Public reaction to stories like Mary's often reflects both awe and curiosity. Social media commentators, relationship bloggers, and those who follow long-distance narratives frequently focus on the interplay between commitment, time, and emotional endurance. Many observers express fascination at the ability to maintain devotion without immediate gratification, seeing it as an extraordinary testament to human resilience. One relationship expert noted, "The case of James and Mary demonstrates that love is more than passion or proximity. It is built on trust, consistency, and a moral commitment to uphold the integrity of one's word, even when circumstances make fulfillment uncertain." As the years drew on, subtle, almost imperceptible shifts began to manifest in their interactions. Communication became more than the conveyance of affection. It evolved into a shared reflection on growth, values, and the personhood each had cultivated independently. Mary, in her letters, asked not for reassurance, but for insight, curious about James's development, his perspectives, and his understanding of the world they had once shared. James, in turn, engaged with thoughtfulness, demonstrating both humility and a recognition of past shortcomings. These exchanges revealed that love, matured through time and reflection, could evolve into mutual respect and understanding, even before reunion or resolution. The role of memory in their narrative cannot be understated. Each recollection, carefully preserved, acted as both anchor and guide. Mary remembered the exact shade of James's eyes under sunlight, the rhythm of his laughter in quiet spaces, and the earnestness with which he had spoken when promising to return. James recalled Mary's habitual gestures, the tilt of her head when pondering, the precise way she wrote letters, the small acts of kindness that had once seemed ordinary, but had, over time, assumed monumental significance. Experts in emotional psychology suggest that such detailed recollection strengthens attachment, allowing individuals to maintain emotional continuity even across extreme temporal gaps. Meanwhile, Mary's personal evolution continued to unfold. She had developed a career that allowed creative expression, intellectual stimulation, and meaningful engagement with others. She had learned to navigate the balance between past loyalty and present fulfillment, embracing opportunities for joy while never abandoning the emotional truth she carried for James. In moments of quiet reflection, she often articulated insights about the nature of love and commitment, noting that sometimes endurance is itself a form of active devotion. Waiting, she wrote, is not a surrender. It is a conscious choice to honor a promise, to live ethically with the values you hold dear, and to cultivate inner strength. James, observing his own life from the vantage of years of experience, came to similar realizations. Success alone could not compensate for absence. Achievement without emotional integrity felt hollow. He began to understand that the promise he had made to Mary was not a mere sentimental vow, but a moral contract whose fulfillment required both presence and ethical awareness. This realization inspired him to approach both his professional life and his eventual reunion with renewed intentionality. He sought counsel, engaged in self-reflection, and gradually reconciled his achievements with the emotional responsibilities that had long weighed upon him. Amidst all of this, small signs indicated that a pivotal moment was approaching. Letters that once spoke only of daily routine now contained reflections on shared history, expressions of accountability, and indications of readiness for a tangible encounter. Each communication, while carefully measured, carried a growing intensity, a suggestion that the distance which had defined the previous decade might soon be bridged by presence. Observers of long-term attachment note that such moments often signal both culmination and transformation, the point where years of patience, growth, and reflection converge to create the possibility of resolution. Mary's social circle watched with a mixture of concern and admiration. Friends who had previously encouraged her to move on now offered quiet support, recognizing that her steadfastness had been exercised with wisdom rather than obsession. They noted that she had not allowed the passage of time to diminish her sense of self or her capacity for meaningful engagement with the world. Her life, though marked by anticipation, had flourished independently, a testament to the compatibility of personal growth with enduring emotional commitment. James, too, was aware of the significance of these approaching moments. His preparation was not merely logistical, but deeply emotional. He reflected on past missteps, contemplated the ethical weight of his vow, and anticipated the challenge of reintegration after years of separation. Such anticipation, while fraught with anxiety, was tempered by clarity and self-awareness. He understood that the reunion, or the conversation that would follow, was not about reclaiming the past, but about honoring the integrity of shared history and the lessons learned across time. The narrative at this point was poised delicately between expectation and reality. It was a story of endurance, reflection, and the moral implications of promises kept over extraordinary spans of time. Mary's sustained commitment and James's growing insight had created an emotional landscape ripe for transformation, yet the final resolution remained uncertain. Experts suggest that in such situations, the culmination is often less about the grand gestures and more about the authenticity, honesty, and courage with which both individuals confront the weight of years and the truths they carry. And so, as the 11th year of separation approached its later months, the stage was set for a meeting that would test patience, resilience, and the enduring power of promise. Both Mary and James had emerged from a decade of waiting and growth as fundamentally changed individuals. Yet the emotional bond that had sparked their journey remained potent, tempered by time and experience. The unfolding narrative promised insight not only into the nature of human attachment, but also into the ethics of love, loyalty, and the transformative potential of patience. James and Mary's lives, though separated by a decade, had remained quietly intertwined in ways neither could fully articulate until this reunion. As part 3 unfolds, the layers of their emotional landscape become increasingly visible. Mary's heart carried the weight of years spent waiting, of quiet resilience forged in solitude. Friends and family often marveled at her strength, noting how she balanced hope with patience, never allowing longing to turn into bitterness. "It's remarkable," one longtime friend observed, "how she maintained her dignity and composure through all those years." Psychologists note that such endurance is rare. It requires a deep understanding of one's values, an unwavering sense of personal ethics, and the ability to navigate uncertainty with grace. Mary exemplified these qualities, making her reunion with James not only emotionally charged but deeply instructive. James approached the encounter with a similar depth, though his journey had been markedly different. He had spent the intervening years reflecting on his early choices, understanding the consequences of leaving Mary waiting, and confronting his own limitations. While time had afforded him growth, it had also brought the sobering recognition of lost moments, birthdays missed, milestones unseen, and the quiet erosion of shared experiences. His remorse was tempered not by regret alone, but by a conscious effort to act with integrity now, to honor the vow he had made years before. During private moments before the meeting, James confided to a close colleague, "I realize now that a promise isn't measured by the time it takes to fulfill, but by the intention and courage to uphold it, even after years." The meeting itself was imbued with an almost cinematic tension. A quiet cafe, dimly lit with soft afternoon sunlight filtering through the windows, became the backdrop for a reunion years in the making. Mary arrived first, her composure meticulously cultivated over years of reflection, though her pulse betrayed the anticipation she tried to mask. James entered shortly after, carrying a quiet humility that contrasted with the confident persona he had once projected. When their eyes met, decades of longing, reflection, and personal growth converged in a single poignant moment. The silence that followed was not awkward. It was laden with meaning, a pause that allowed both to absorb the gravity of what had brought them to this point. Their initial words were measured, thoughtful, and intentional. "It's hard to believe it's been 10 years," Mary said softly, her voice carrying both warmth and the careful restraint of someone who had learned to protect her heart. James nodded, replying with quiet sincerity, "And yet, in some ways, it feels like no time has passed at all. I've thought about this moment countless times." In these exchanges, the subtle dynamics of long-term attachment were evident, an intricate blend of anticipation, reflection, and the careful navigation of vulnerability. Each phrase, each gesture conveyed volumes about the lives they had lived, the lessons they had internalized, and the emotional resilience they had cultivated. As their conversation unfolded, they revisited memories both mundane and profound. James recalled the quiet ways Mary had demonstrated her care, from thoughtful gestures to moments of quiet encouragement. Mary remembered James' youthful confidence, the laughter that had once filled shared evenings, and the promise that had initially anchored her hope. Their recollections were neither sentimentalized nor dramatized. They were vivid, authentic, and underscored by the recognition of personal growth and enduring respect. Experts on human relationships note that such reflective dialogues are central to meaningful reconciliation or closure, providing emotional clarity and a shared acknowledgement of the past. Throughout their meeting, subtle gestures punctuated their dialogue. A hand brushing against a coffee cup, a nod of acknowledgement, or a soft smile carried emotional weight beyond words. These nonverbal cues reflected the depth of experience, illustrating how time, absence, and reflection can deepen emotional literacy. Social psychologists emphasize that these gestures, coupled with sincere verbal exchanges, are often more impactful than dramatic declarations, allowing both individuals to express understanding, remorse, and respect simultaneously. Mary and James discussed the personal lessons learned over the decade. Mary spoke of patience, integrity, and the ability to cultivate personal growth, even while waiting for a promise to be fulfilled. Waiting, she explained, doesn't mean standing still. It means moving forward with purpose while holding on to what you believe is important. James shared insights from his journey of introspection, acknowledging past mistakes and emphasizing the role of personal accountability. "I've come to understand," he said, "that love is not only about presence, but about consistency, honesty, and honoring commitments, no matter how much time has passed." These reflections revealed a shared understanding that love is an evolving process, shaped by both time and conscious effort. The emotional intensity of the encounter deepened as they spoke about regrets and lost opportunities. Yet, instead of descending into remorse or recrimination, their conversation remained constructive, reflective, and imbued with a sense of maturity. Experts note that such emotional equilibrium is rare in long-awaited reunions, often requiring both parties to have developed resilience, empathy, and a nuanced understanding of human imperfection. Mary and James demonstrated these qualities fully, transforming what could have been a painful confrontation into a profound exchange of emotional clarity and mutual respect. As the afternoon progressed, the conversation shifted toward the present and future. They shared insights into their current lives, professional accomplishments, and personal growth. James described his efforts to mentor young professionals, emphasizing the importance of patience, communication, and ethical consistency. Mary discussed her involvement in community initiatives and her own journey toward emotional resilience and self-discovery. Their discussion highlighted the potential for individual growth, even when relationships experience long-term disruption. It also underscored the possibility of maintaining respect, care, and meaningful connection without necessarily resuming romantic involvement. The meeting gradually approached its emotional apex. Both Mary and James acknowledged the gravity of the decade-long journey, reflecting on the lessons learned, the personal transformations, and the enduring significance of the promises that had shaped their lives. In a quiet, deliberate gesture, they shared a brief embrace, not of romantic desire, but of mutual recognition and gratitude. It was a hug that carried the weight of years, conveying understanding, accountability, and emotional closure. Social commentators often highlight that such gestures, executed with authenticity and awareness, can provide a sense of resolution that transcends conventional expectations of reunion or reconciliation. As they parted, there was a profound sense of completion. Both recognized that this encounter was a milestone, not the end of their story, but a transformative point marking the culmination of years of reflection, personal growth, and enduring respect. Mary walked away with a quiet serenity, carrying the knowledge that her patience and integrity had been honored. James left with a tempered humility and an appreciation for the resilience and wisdom that Mary embodied. Together, their interaction illustrated a critical principle. Enduring love is not only about presence, but about honoring commitments, cultivating growth, and embracing accountability even across the span of years. In the days that followed, public observers reflected on the narrative of Mary and James as a testament to the power of patience, integrity, and long-term emotional fidelity. Social media discussions emphasize the importance of emotional growth, mutual respect, and reflective engagement in sustaining meaningful human connections. Relationship counselors highlighted the story as an example of how promises kept, personal growth, and deliberate reflection can create meaningful closure, understanding, and mutual appreciation, even after extended separation. Mary's life continued to flourish, infused with purpose, compassion, and reflective insight. She engaged in initiatives that inspired others, sharing her experiences of patience, resilience, and integrity with broader audiences. James pursued similar endeavors, focusing on mentorship, community engagement, and the cultivation of personal awareness. Both individuals exemplified how the careful navigation of promises, personal growth, and reflective dialogue can create profound meaning in human relationships, independent of romantic reconciliation. Thanks for watching.